Peter Taylor, the Lazy Project Manager, talks social project management for ProjectManagement.com, powered by PMI.
Hi there, my name is Peter Taylor, but you may know me through my alter ego, the author of The Lazy Project Manager. But today I'm not talking about lazy project management, I want to talk to you about social project management. This is an emerging and evolving world, and through this series of videos we will together explore this world, this exciting world, and what opportunities it can bring us as project managers. But there is a challenge. We have to find out a way of balancing the social collaborative world with the need for centralized control and governance in this very project driven world. So join me and explore the world of the social project manager. So project success and the social project manager. Now, project managers, what are we about? We're about bringing about success. That's our job, is to manage resources, to manage people, to deliver a change to an organisation, but to do it in a way that is controlled, it is managed, it is guiding, it is control to a point of success. Now, I'm sure you recognise what I'm going to say next. I have in the past delivered a project on time, to budget, to scope, and have not been welcomed like a conquering hero by the organisation I was working with. They asked me to do A, B, and C. They asked me to do it by next Friday, and they asked me to do it for $100, pounds, euros, whatever currency you want to use. And I've delivered A, B, and C, and I've done it by Thursday. And I've done it for £99, euros, dollars, whatever. And I was not greeted like the conquering hero. I was not greeted at that final project review meeting, that closure meeting, with smiles, with warm embraces, with gifts. How strange. And yeah, I know I've also, in all honesty, delivered projects that have been late, that have been over budget, that have been under scope, and conversely I have not necessarily been welcomed by a conquering hero, but I have received very positive feedback because the project has delivered perceived benefits, business benefits. It has delivered what the organisation really wanted. And I've also been involved in many projects where they've been everything from a kind of a time materials approach to a kind of fixed contractual approach as well. And the fixed ones, I've worked on and produced unbelievably in-depth specifications of what has been delivered. And I do have to go back quite a few years now, and for the most part we just don't do this anymore, but this particular one, the specification ran to 3 volumes. 2 volumes, if I remember rightly, were at least 200 pages each, and there was an appendix of at least another 100 pages in the 3rd volume. That was the written specification. Everything that technology was going to do, what the screenshots would look like, what the interactions and interfaces would look like, etc., etc. A phenomenal amount of effort was put in. I think it was about 6 months was put into producing that fixed definition. And yet, almost the moment we started the project, things changed, because as in that sense, the customer, the key stakeholders began to understand what the technology could do that my organisation were providing, and what we as an organisation providing that sort of technology began to understand about the business of the customer that we were involved in. Then hey, guess what? Things naturally changed. Things changed for the better. It was a tough project. It ran for a long period of time, but it changed for the better because we adapted on both sides and we began to deliver those business benefits. So, if we measure ourselves on the original time, cost, scope, absolute failure. Nowhere near indeed. But if we measure ourselves on the true parameters of success, did the organisation gain real business benefits from the change that we undertook, or I undertook as a project manager with my project team? Yes, we did. And therefore project success in the social project world is as critical as in the traditional project world, of course. But there has to be, and I cover this in my book, Real Project Management, there has to be a new definition of project success.
Now this is the iron triangle that we'll
we'll all remember, I'm sure, as project managers. It describes what is constraints of project is by time, by cost, by scope, with a fundamental and underpinning point being that you don't succeed by delivering low quality. Now, this is a triangle. If you reduce time, then you raise the cost, reduce the scope. If you extend the scope, you raise the cost, and most likely the time stretches as well, and so on. The iron triangle was invented by Dr. Martin Barnes back in 1969 to demonstrate the connectivity between time, cost, and output, correct scope at the correct quality. It's also known as the triple constraint. Now, the Oxford Dictionary defines success as the accomplishment of an aim or purpose, which is pretty vague and high level, it seems to me. We definitely need more than this to guide project managers today. Now, the most commonly quoted story of success in project management, perhaps with the single exception of the moon landing, objective get a man on the moon, immediately extended scope requests by said men being get a man on the moon and return safely to Earth. The most famous one is that of the Sydney Opera House. Now, I've had the opportunity of visiting and speaking in Sydney on a couple of occasions, and as I record this particular video, I'm a couple of weeks away from going out there for another time, so I'm really looking forward to it. And I loved the time I spent sitting on the outside in the sunshine, typically at the opera bar, sipping a cold beer and looking at the opera house, harbour and bridge. It truly is a wonderful and an iconic place. Apparently, the original 1957 project plan expected the build to be completed in just less than 5 years at a cost of $7 million. In the end, the project cost some $110 million, and the building, designed by Danish architect Jon Utzon, formally opened on 20th of October 1973, 10 years late. Status: a project failure. By any measure, if you read the history, this was a troubled project with a very bad public profile, fueled by regular and vicious press attacks about the many missed deadlines and changing projections. But if you consider the project now, the fact that the Sydney Opera House has been identified as one of the 20th century's most distinctive buildings and one of the most famous performing arts centres in the world, with over 1,500 performances each year, failure doesn't seem to be the right analysis. Today, the Sydney Opera House is an icon of Australia as a whole, and a magnet that draws tourists to Australia in their thousands. So status: a project success. Perhaps that may not even be the end of the debate. As tourism rises, there is the challenge to the sustainability of the location itself, the cost of maintaining the building and facilities, and the whole kind of green issue. So future status, perhaps it's unknown. It seems that success, using this one example, is hard to define, but it certainly lives on way past the project delivery date. The Sydney Harbour Bridge wasn't on time, wasn't on cost, and the scope was severely challenging. And so it's challenging to consider what success might be. And this is another similar story from the UK this time, about the Caledonian Canal in Scotland. Today, the Caledonian Canal is described as 60 miles of Scottish Highlands splendour amidst an outstanding unsport scenery. Slicing through the Great Glen, this majestic canal is considered by many as one of the greatest waterways in the world. 4 natural lochs, Loch Lochy, Loch Oich, the famous Loch Ness and Loch Duffur, all lie in near perfect alignment between Fort William and Inverness, making up 38 miles of the 60-mile coast-to-coast channel, the remaining 22 miles being man-made canal linking these 4 lochs together. Widely considered a masterpiece of canal engineering, the Caledonian is on a scale incomparable with almost anything else in Britain. It has survived in part due to its continuing importance in the Highland economy, and partly because it is simply spectacular, not to mention the amazing wildlife, including, of course, the mythical Loch Ness Monster. Status: a project success. This project actually was conceived to aid shipping by reducing journey times and for also providing a safer passage for wooden sailing ships from the north-east of Scotland to the south-west, avoiding the route around the north coast via Cape Wrath and Pentland Firth, a dangerous journey. The Caledonian Canal Commission paved the way for the actual construction that started in 1803. An Act of Parliament was passed to authorise the project, and canal engineer Thomas Telford was asked to survey, design and build the waterway. A typical project perhaps, since the design was expected to take 7 years to complete and cost £474,000. This was some time ago, of course, to be funded by the government, and both estimates were inadequate. It took more than double the budget and ran late by 12 years. And by the time the project was finally completed, it was no longer needed. Status: a project failure. See, shipbuilding had advanced to the introduction of steam-powered iron-hulled ships, many of which were now too big to use the canal, and the Navy did not need to use the canal either, as Napoleon had been defeated at Waterloo, and the perceived threat to shipping when the canal was started was now gone, so commercially the venture was not a success.
but the dramatic scenery through which it passes led eventually to becoming a tourist attraction. So the original project goals were delivered in the sense that the canal was built and the benefits were very different to those anticipated. There was another aspect to all of this. The canal provided much needed employment to the Highland region at that time. The area was depressed as a result of the Highland clearances, which had deprived many of their homes and jobs, and faced with laws that sought to eradicate their culture, including the right to bear tartan, play bagpipes and speak Gaelic. Many were emigrating to Canada or to the Scottish lowlands. So, status, a project success. For the Caledonian Canal, the original benefits were lost, but the others were gained, and it isn't over even now. A new scheme is underway whereby freight cargoes could be transported up and down the canal, and so it lives on. Status, a project success. So sometimes it seems the benefits of the project that we all work can change as time progresses. Now PMI have moved with the times as well. Mark Langling, CEO at PMI, proposed that a new project management triangle is appropriate these days, and instead of the traditional points of time, cost and scope, the new points should be business acumen, leadership and technical project management. The technical project management piece includes the old triple constraints, i.e. the act of managing time, cost and quality, to scope rather to quality. Mr. Langley stated that if we only speak the language of project management as in scope, time and cost, then project management as a profession will fail today's business. And as such, I developed my own kind of version of this when I put together the book, the Real Project Management, and defined my own kind of definition of success in this particular situation. And this is my own version of that. As I said, I consider there are kind of the same again. I mean, as PMI talk about, there is the technical side, the time, the cost, the scope, and linking that is to quality. But I also see there's a risk aspect to success, there's resource aspect to success, and if over on the other side, it's more to do with the surrounding components of the landscape of the project. So there are politics, there is relevance of what's going on, there is the impact of what's going on, and sustainability is important as well. And this is just this is a classic spider diagram measurement of success against these multiple elements that I put together. I guess I said in my book Real Project Management, published back in 2015. So another version of project success measurement. And as social project managers, that's what we're driving towards. Whatever it is that defines success for our projects, whether we're operating in a traditional or a social world, we have to understand that. We have to manage our projects accordingly.
Let me give you a social story. Now, in the book, The Social Project Manager, I do draw upon a number of social stories where I've received sort of mini case studies from people. This particular company, in this social story, initiated a project to deliver a methodology to deliver projects. All right, so this is a company that was going to go through major change, major growth, and they had a fairly old way of working with projects, but now they realised that actually most of the work, or significant amount of the work that we're doing, was project based. So therefore they needed to have develop a more formalised method of doing project management, and therefore deliver project success. But they also realised it had to be appropriate to the scale of the organisation and appropriate to the culture of the organisation, whilst at the same time ensuring that the project management community delivered higher levels of project success, more consistency, etc., etc. The success measurement for this initiative was constructed because it was identified that there will be concerns from some stakeholders in parts of the company about a big brother approach, with a heavy governance and a you must do this and then you do this and then you do this kind of attitude. This was something that was not desired by the business and not something that the project was expected to deliver. In fact, if it had delivered such a kind of methodology beast, then the project would have been declared a failure. So to mitigate this, because this was a real concern, it's very easy to sit down and scope out the most detailed and complex methodology. But to mitigate this, then the project team created a shared and open information platform with access for all stakeholders that clearly set out the project direction that was summarised as control without constraint. Control without constraint. i.e. a process or method that ensured there was appropriate control, but did not constrain the creativity of the project managers, and did not constrain the business, but also supported the culture of the organisation. The social platform offered stakeholders the opportunity to understand the objectives, but also to comment on the progress and to challenge where they felt that the project might be deviating from the success criteria. In fact, there were regular updates through this kind of virtual platform to the various stakeholders on how things were progressing. The inclusiveness of this social approach offered mitigated the concerns of the wider stakeholder community, as well as informing the project team where the project may have been potentially creating failure points, i.e. methodology elements that might have been too heavy for the business or that part of the business that the stakeholder was represented. Now this allowed the team to review and to adjust where relevant and offered a final solution that was more accepted by the end users. This guidance of control without constraint, fitting the culture of the organisation, giving everybody a voice that they could connect to the project team, delivered something that was deemed to be valuable, useful and therefore successful to the organisation as a whole. In the next episode, influence and the social project manager.